Good afternoon, live from Toronto on the GBKM network. This is the Chat Up Show, the show where we chat about any and everything to do with your weekly news and popular culture. I'm your host, Elizabeth Aloyde, and I hope that you are ready to chat it up with me today. Now, as always, you can keep up with the GBKM network in various ways. You can continue to listen live 24/7 on our website at www.gbkm.fm. You can watch our shows live on YouTube and Facebook at GBKM TV. You can follow us on Instagram at GBKMFM and Twitter at GBKM_FM just to keep up with what we're doing at the network. Now, first and foremost, I want to say it is a holiday here in Canada, so happy Canada Day, everybody. It's fun, it's exciting, we're feeling the holiday spirit. At least we are here in the studio today. Things are slowly starting to open up. We are fully in summer. Things are good. But as today is Canada Day, it is important that we remember the lands that we are on, the land of the many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, the Wendat peoples, and this land is also home to many diverse nations, Inuit and Métis as well. So it's important that we remember it is Canada Day, and in Canada Day we celebrate and pay our respects to the land and territories that we are taking up space in. Now, it is a holiday, and it's a little bit weird because we're still in the middle of a pandemic. Some of you may not be sure what you can do, what to do. Do not worry, because we got you covered on the Chat Up Show. Later on in the show, I'm going to be diving into the various things that are open today on the holiday. Though if you have been around, you've seen that things are a little bit deserted. Don't worry, there are things and activities that you can still enjoy, even though we are trying to stay safe as we're coming out onto the other side of reopening the economy, essentially post-pandemic. I like to call this period the pre-post COVID-19 period because it's pre the after. We're on our way to after and dealing with what has happened the last few months, and we're on our way on to the other side. And with that, there are some new regulations regarding wearing masks in indoor public spaces, and we'll also be diving into that later on in the show today, talking about that new bylaw that is making mask wearing mandatory in indoor public spaces. So I'm going to be giving you the rundown of which public spaces you will be required to wear a mask in Toronto as of July 7th. So you have about a week to get your affairs in order and maybe start getting used to wearing that mask a little bit more if you haven't done it already. But you know, mask wearing is becoming more and more part of our new normal now. We have a lot more fashion labels even creating their own version of fashionable masks. We had Catherine Ade, who is the founder of Kayla K, on the show a few weeks ago, who was talking about creating masks to help during the pandemic, to help provide resources the best way that she can, and various other people are doing the same thing. So you can find yourself a cute mask that makes you feel bomb but also helps to protect you. But first, we're going to dive into why masks have been such a hot topic, why these little things that cover our mouth and nose, made essentially to protect us, have been such a hot topic for debate. Now, something that, you know, we've kind of been discussing for a while is whether it's important to be wearing masks in public spaces, at home, just when it's appropriate to be wearing a mask, when it's like necessary and essential to be wearing a mask. And it's really interesting to see just how much that little piece of cloth covering our mouth and nose has caused so much debate for so long. We remember at the beginning of this pandemic, when we first went into lockdown, there was a lot of confusion as to whether masks were necessary for people who weren't showing symptoms quite yet, for people who were staying home, you know, keeping in with the lockdown restrictions, keeping their distance, you know, washing our hands, all the things that experts were telling us to do to protect ourselves. Now, it was reported that masks weren't as an important factor when it came to stopping the transmission of COVID-19. And then the main question became, can face masks help prevent the spread of the coronavirus? And that was the question that you may be having these debates with your friends at home, wondering whether masks are really important. You're seeing them on social media. And Mayo Clinic actually answered this question. According to the Mayo Clinic, the answer is yes, that face masks combined with other preventative measures such as frequent hand washing, our 6 feet of physical distancing, all help to slow the spread of the virus. So yes, a face mask is one of the factors that we know now can help stop spreading the virus. Now, as more things begin to open up, as we know, as the economy starts to slowly reopen, businesses start to reopen, and now Toronto and the Peel region is officially in phase 2. You know, we were left lagging a little bit last month, but we finally made it there. We're in phase 2, you guys. We're in phase 2 of the 3-phase reopening measures that were put in place by our government and by our premier in Ontario. So now that things are opening up, masks are essentially becoming almost like our last line of defense. You know, we're starting to be a little bit more social now that we can have social gatherings of up to 10 people. But it's important to remember that this isn't 10 different people all the time. And essentially, it's the same 10 people that you're socializing with, so that it's keeping your communication, your physical socializations within the same group of 10 people. Wearing masks is just another step that we can take if we aren't able to physically distance properly, effectively, if we're not able to wash our hands as frequently as we like. Of course, there's the hand sanitizer as the portable option, but wearing a mask is also a step that is necessary in ensuring we stop the spread of the virus. Now, I'm sure you're wondering, like many, why face masks weren't recommended at the start of the pandemic. And the short answer of it was, at the time, nobody really had a clear idea on how the transmission process worked, especially with people who were asymptomatic, non-symptomatic, what that meant for those around them, for themselves as well, and how they could potentially protect themselves. Now that we do have more of an idea of how asymptomatic people are still as in the cycle of transmission and are part of the cycle of transmission, now experts are coming out to say that masks really are necessary. Now, the Mayo Clinic also reports that asking everyone to wear cloth masks can help reduce the spread of the coronavirus by people who have COVID-19 but don't realize it, and people which essentially sums up people who are asymptomatic or just not showing the symptoms yet. And it's still in that 10 to 14 day period where you're self-checking to see how things are going, see how you're feeling. Not sure yet, you might be showing some symptoms. Wearing a cloth mask, the Mayo Clinic reports, is a great way to help stop the spread for those in the gray area of things. It's just easier to be on the safe side, right? So you take those extra precautions just to ensure that you remain safe, healthy, and you're keeping those around you safe and healthy as well. And now we're starting to realize that cloth masks are a helpful tool to use to do that and to accomplish that. Now, countries that required face masks, testing, isolation, you know, the 14-day isolation period when people come into the country, also that required social distancing early in the pandemic, which is mostly the European countries, are now seeing themselves being able to come out on the other side and really go back to as much of a normal sense of lifestyle that we had pre-pandemic. So just seeing those as actual physical, I guess you could call them case studies, they're helping to prove the point that wearing a cloth mask to prevent the spread that will kind of stop, you know, droplets that, from natural speaking or whatever, coming out from your mouth that could hold the virus and continue to spread it. Wearing a cloth face mask covering your mouth and your nose will help prevent that, even if it's not by 100%, but enough to make some sort of a difference. Now, according to the CDC, cloth face coverings fashioned from household items or made at home from common materials at low cost can be used as an additional voluntary public health measure. So you don't necessarily need to use the surgical N95 masks that you may have been hearing about all for the last 4 months essentially. But anything that you can fashion from a household, from a handkerchief, from a cloth, a cotton cloth that you can use to cover your face and cover your nose and your mouth. Now, I brought a scarf today. Granted, this is a satin scarf, so it's not exactly in accordance with regulations, but you could easily cover your mouth and your nose with a scarf at home. Cloth is preferable, of course, but according to the CDC, these are useful. You do not necessarily need a surgical mask, as you can use household items to help protect yourself and protect those around you. Now, CDC guidelines for these homemade masks state that the cloth face coverings should fit snugly but comfortably against the side of your face and be secured with ties or ear loops, including multiple layers of fabric that allow for breathing without restriction, and be able to be laundered and machine dried without damage or change to shape. So these are some of the basic guidelines to follow if you are planning on making your own masks at home that you may have seen online. There are a bunch of tutorials all over the internet if that's something that you're looking for, in specific instructions on how to create your own face mask. But the guidelines to remember is that there needs to be multiple layers of fabric. It has to be secured on your face, because if there's any way that, you're talking, some saliva flies out and it lands on something, someone, whatever, lands in the air, we want to eliminate that as much as possible. So ensuring that it's secured on your face. And the easiest way, obviously, is to get masks that were created to be masks. But if you are stuck in a bind and you don't have any more, you ran out of disposable masks and you need to run to the grocery store, which is on the list of places that now require mandatory mask wearing, and you don't have time to go get a mask, then here's your plan B, option B. Now, the CDC website even includes directions for no-sew masks made from bandanas and t-shirts. So if you're also looking for that, you can check that out and see for those instructions as well on how you can create your masks. So, at this point, there's really no excuse to say that, oh, you don't wear a mask, oh, I couldn't find one. There are different ways and options you can take to ensure that you're keeping yourself and those around you safe and protecting yourself and preventing, which is the ultimate thing, preventing the spread of the virus, so that we can, say it with me, flatten the curve, because that's what we've been trying to do all this time, is to flatten the curve of the virus so that it's not at its peak. And all over the world, we're still seeing that there are cases that are still rising. Even just south of our border in the United States, cases are still rising. And that might also be due to the fact that there is so much contention when it comes to who needs to wear a mask, when it's necessary to wear a mask. But here are some guidelines as to when that is necessary. And what's important at the end of the day is ensuring that we are covering our nose and our mouths in some way that's also allowing for us to breathe. You don't want to get claustrophobic or anything like that while wearing the mask. So just ensuring that you can breathe. If it's a reusable mask, something that you can wash, dry, and will not change the integrity or the structural integrity of said made mask. Now, more pointers for putting on and taking off cloth masks is, I have seen a lot of different ways people are wearing their masks. Some people are full face covered, created a mask for their eyes, cut out eye holes. Cool, do what you need to do, but ensure that you're staying safe and you can see and breathe. People are forgetting to cover their nose and only covering their mouth. Folks just leaving it on their chins and not actually covering anything. People who are constantly touching their faces when they're wearing the mask, which is also essentially kind of defeating the purpose. So these are just some guidelines that the CDC has also put out on how to properly wear your mask. So for one, you have to place your mask over your mouth and your nose. So I have a mask here. Little demonstration. So you place it over your mouth and your nose, and you ensure that the loops are tied behind your ears, and make sure that they're snug and secure so they're not moving around and it's not changing, and you don't have to fidget with it as much, and you don't have to play with your face as much. So ensuring that it's snug and it fits well. If you have smaller ears, you can double loop it just to ensure that it stays put for a long period of time. One major thing is, don't touch your mask while you're wearing it, because again, touching your face is another way to pass on the virus. Also known that you can pass the virus through your eye membrane. So if you're touching your eyes, touching your face, touching the masks, it's just a circulation of just unhygienic stuff. So you want to really refrain from touching your face while wearing your mask, touching the mask itself. And then if you accidentally touch your mask, wash or sanitize your hands after. And then wash your hands also immediately after removing your masks, just to ensure there's no contamination. Regularly wash your masks with soap and water in the washing machine. It's fine to wash these cloth masks that you're making, and most of the reusable masks are made out of cotton as well. So you could put them in the laundry with your other clothes and wash them regularly, which is so important. Also, please, please, please do wash your reusable mask. You don't want to wear a mask every single day for a month and not wash it. It's like your sheets. You want to wash your sheets, wash your towels. Now you got to wash your mask. That's another little step for doing laundry day, I guess, adding your mask to the list of things you have to launder. And also some precautions for wearing face masks as well. Don't put masks on anyone who has trouble breathing, is unconscious, or otherwise unable to remove the mask without help. So if they're unable to, I guess, give you consent to put the mask on them, they're unable to breathe, they're unconscious, they can't remove the mask without help, don't put a mask on them unless it is it's required and spoken to a doctor about it. In the same breath, there are some people who do have some health conditions that restrict them from wearing a mask. It's important to speak to your doctor about that, especially on how you can keep yourself safe and keep those around you safe as well if you are unable to wear a mask due to pre-existing health conditions. So speaking to your doctor is the first course of action when it comes to how to protect yourself in public spaces, and also trying to find an alternative for if you do have to go to these indoor public spaces that require a mandatory mask. Also, no mask on children under the age of 2, just because, the whole mouth, nose breathing thing is a little new to them. They're not really sure how to deal with that, like a lot of us adults who are used to breathing from either or. So no mask for kids under 2. But for the rest of us, please wear your masks. Please. We've seen now, according to science, what we do know is that wearing the mask can help prevent the spread of the virus, the same with our physical distancing of at least 6 feet. Now I'm going to dive into a little bit of the science behind this. And in a lab study published in the New England Journal of Medicine found that using a high-speed video, they found that hundreds of droplets ranging from 20 to 500 micrometers were generated when saying a simple phrase, but that nearly all these droplets were blocked when the mouth was covered by a damp washcloth. So they did an experiment to test how much and how far these droplets will travel, which is why we also have our 6 feet distance rule, because that's about how far these droplets can go before landing on a surface or, I guess, in the air. But wearing these masks can really help prevent those droplets from carrying on to other people and spreading the virus. So these are just some steps to take to ensure that you're staying safe. And the science behind why people are encouraging the use of masks is because it stops these droplets that could potentially spread the virus even more. So basically, wear a mask or face covering that can fully cover your nose and your mouth while still breathing comfortably in public spaces where physical distancing really is not an option, or just in public spaces, indoor spaces especially. I mean, when you're outside, I guess you can kind of use your discretion if you're not around in a very crowded space where you can't move your 6 feet of distance as much as you want to, or if you just feel comfortable just wearing a mask either way, just to be on the safe side. It's always good to be on the safe side, just to make sure that everything is good and dandy and everyone is staying safe and healthy. Now, at this point, as I said, saying that you can't find a mask is an excuse that really will not fly for much longer, because in most convenience stores in the city, they are selling these disposable masks. Some are selling reusable masks, selling the filters that go into the reusable masks, which is also an important thing that a lot of people do like to add just as an extra barrier of protection. Adding these filters that you can use with your reusable masks as well. Now, the most important thing about wearing masks is that it's worn consistently, especially when you are in spaces that don't allow for proper physical distancing. Wearing the mask 100% of the time is better than wearing it 75% of the time, basic maths. But also just because if you're wearing it 100% of the time, you know that 100% of the time you're safe and you are protected, and that there is a mask blocking any kind of cross-transmission of COVID-19. So, just to reiterate, remember, mouth and nose need to be covered Mask has to be secure to your face so that you can breathe, but you won't be fidgeting, trying to readjust. I know. Even I found it a little bit uncomfortable to be wearing a mask for my grocery trips and whatnot. But as I started wearing my mask more often, I got used to it. You get used to things. Humans are able to adapt, okay? We are very adaptable. So this is just something new. This is our new normal until at least September in Toronto, which is when the next council meeting will be, where it will be mandatory for us to be wearing masks in public indoor spaces. So, hate to be a little harsh on it, but you kind of got to get used to it now at this point. It's a bylaw. We can't get around it. So, 100% of the time you're wearing your masks, you know that you are safe and you're protected. So that's just something to keep in mind when you're going out and about, especially enjoying today, enjoying the holidays with the different activities you can be doing around the city. Just remember, we are still in the middle of a pandemic. It hasn't gone away completely, okay? We're still there. We're still trying to thrive as much as we can. We're trying to open as many businesses as we can, trying to slowly ease our way back into something that can resemble normalcy, but also remembering that we still need to err on the side of caution when it comes to these things. So cover your mouth and your nose in these public spaces. And also not forgetting our 20 seconds of hand washing minimum, okay? You know the drill, humming happy birthday to you if you need to. Also practicing proper physical distance. And even though our social circle can expand to 10 people, remembering that those are the same 10 people you probably will be socializing with for the near future. So I hope that there are 10 people that you enjoy for long periods of time. But this is all just precautions that we can take to continue to stay safe and continue to be healthy. I mean, we're the 7th month of the year. We're halfway through 2020. Y'all, we made it. That's something positive, halfway through, and look at us, okay? So that's just another way to look at it. We've been doing these things to stay safe all this while. Why stop now? Let's just continue, stay strong, you know, Canada's strong. And so wearing your masks, as of now, experts say you should wear them, okay? Experts also encourage that for the general public, to disregard the myth that was going around. Now, earlier in the pandemic, we kind of did a little COVID-19 Mythbusters episode on the Chat Up Show. And today I just want to reiterate one of those myths. This is posted on the WHO website as well, if you wanted to go check out all those other myths that have been busted for yourself. But one major myth that was going around was that prolonged use of the mask would lead to CO2 intoxication or oxygen deficiency. The science says that that's not true. WHO says that that's not true, that there's no way that the masks would lead to that level of CO2 intoxication that could really result in some bodily damage. So there you have it. That is a myth and it's been busted. So if that was your worry, no need to worry. But of course, it's always safe to talk to your doctor if you do have some concerns of your pre-existing health conditions and how they might relate to you wearing a mask while you're out in public. Talk to your experts that you feel comfortable speaking to about it and find out what they say about how you should keep yourself protected. Of course, the easiest way to stay protected is to just stay indoors, but how realistic is that going to be when it's summer, you know, especially with the kids, summer vacation, you want to have them doing some activities that kind of make them think of summer and that they would enjoy during the summer. These are just extra steps that you can take to ensure that you and your family are staying safe. So speaking to your doctors about that is also important if you are feeling a little bit wary about it. But this is what experts have said and the science behind whether wearing masks are important. And as of right now, they are in the grand scheme of things when it's coupled with all that we've been doing, our physical distancing, washing hands, not touching our faces, you know, keeping our distance as much as we can. Doing all of that in conjunction means that we are taking all the necessary steps that we know of now that are quite simple to implement in our day-to-day lives. Really, like honestly, just finding a way to cover your mouth and your nose is just one little step that you can take to ensure that as a whole, our community and societies can really heal and mend and move on and move forward from this pandemic and move forward from COVID-19 in our lives. Okay? So that's where we're at when it comes to wearing masks and how important they are. And as I mentioned, there are various ways you can get masks. I said that Catherine Aday, owner and founder of Kayla K, makes great fashionable masks that can also be paired with a head wrap. If you're really about that life and you're trying to stunt on a few people, you can stunt on them with your mouth and your nose covered safely. Okay? So, for now, wear your masks when you can't do everything else, but also wear your mask when you can. So just wear your masks is the bottom line of the question of whether it's important to be wearing masks right now. Now, as Toronto moves slowly into phase 2 and we're starting to see more businesses reopen and we're starting to see the things that we used to enjoy doing starting to reopen, like going to patios, enjoying a cocktail on your favorite patio, even some malls are starting to reopen. So this is something that has been at the back of, especially in Toronto, our mayor's mind about whether masks will become mandatory. Now, as of July 7th, they will. Okay, so all over Toronto and the Peel region, it will be mandatory to wear a mask in a public indoor space. Of course, when you go to a restaurant, you have to take it off to eat and drink, but while you're waiting in line, all of that fun stuff, you have to wear your mask. So we're gonna dive into exactly what this bylaw means and what that means for us Torontonians, where we can go without a mask, with a mask, and all of that fun stuff. So as of yesterday, City Council voted to make masks mandatory starting July 7th, as I mentioned before. So we have about a week, okay? And then July 7th is the day that it will officially be mandatory. This bylaw has been passed, but that's when it fully goes into effect. Now, during the news conference, Mayor John Tory said, and I quote, "It is about respecting and protecting each other." That's the bottom line. It's about respecting and protecting each other. This is why wearing masks is important, because it's about out of respect for not just your health, but the health of those around you. And it's also a way to not just protect yourself, but to protect those around you as well. This is a time where we're really looking out for our community, okay? It's all about community right now. So what we do affects those around us. If it hasn't been clear up until now, I think this is the clearest way we can put it out there, is that the choices that we make, especially now, it's so important that we make choices that not only keep ourselves safe and keep ourselves protected, but also those around us. So we're all taking one for the team when it comes to this, okay? Now, he also added that it will be a key element to reopening the city safely, also stating, "We hope there are more and more people out in the stores and in the businesses across the city. We want that to happen for the sake of our economy and for the sake of returning to a near normal kind of life." So those are words from our mayor regarding this new bylaw. Now, the recommendation was part of a report from Toronto's Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Eileen Davila, that was approved by the council during their meeting on Tuesday. Now, the new regulation, as I said, goes in as a temporary bylaw, July 7th, and though Tory and Davila are encouraging residents to begin following that order immediately. So as of now, that is something you should start implementing in your day-to-day life. Now, Tory said that our doctors say that it works. So this is the recommendation that the city is following recommendations of our doctors. And the rule also goes into effect just days after the city will also make masks or face coverings mandatory on public transit systems. So while you're on the TTC or any kind of public transit system in Toronto and the Peel region, you will also be required to wear a mask or face covering while using these systems. Just a few days before it officially goes into effect, wearing a mask is mandatory for indoor public spaces. So as of now, just think, anytime I'm out in public, the best bet is to just have a mask with you, just so you're on the safe side. And anyway, you know, we just talked about the science of it, that it's all part of the system and the steps that we all take to ensure that we're all staying safe. So having a mask with you anywhere you go should be part of your new normal now. They also noted that suitable exceptions will be made for anyone who cannot wear a mask for medical reasons. As mentioned before, some people do have pre-existing health conditions that don't allow them to wear masks or face coverings. So suitable exceptions, our mayor says, will be made for those who are dealing with that, and as well as for children under the age of 2, which are also the recommendations from the CDC and the WHO as well. So again, best bet, talk to your doctor on how you can ensure that you're staying safe and protecting yourself and others if wearing a mask is an issue or a problem for your health. Now, if you're like many, wondering how the city plans to enforce this temporary bylaw, basically, Mayor Tory said that there will be no aggressive enforcement of the new bylaw and that the city will instead focus on educating the public about the importance of the order and will mostly be complaint-based. So people will complain about others not wearing masks, but there aren't actual things set in place for as he said, aggressive enforcement. And part of the education of this is to educate people on the importance of wearing the mask. So we remember that the virus can be carried through these droplets, and by wearing the face coverings, we're stopping that by a great percentage. So this is why we're doing this. So for those of you who are wondering, why are they making it mandatory now? It's because now we have the science to back up why it's important to wear a mask. And so the city is taking steps to ensure that all residents are safe and healthy, and we can really truly help flatten the curve of COVID-19. Now, fines for violations also have not been set yet by local courts, though the city solicitor said that she expects the figure to be in the ballpark of $750 to $1,000. That is the potential fine you could be facing if you're not wearing a mask in these mandatory mask wearing spaces. I don't know about you, but $700 is way too much for me to be paying for not wearing a mask that is also protecting me at the end of the day. Like, I really want people to think about not just themselves, think about their community at the end of the day. Think about why we're all doing this. It's to ensure that our communities are safe and those who are more vulnerable in our communities are safe and are able to get healthy and stronger day by day. And we don't need to be adding to the reasons that their immune systems are weakening or their health is deteriorating. So these are just steps that we can take personally to ensure not just ourselves, but everyone around us is also safe, so that if you go out, you also feel confident and comfortable enough to be outside because you know everyone else is doing their part to ensure that these spaces remain safe for people to use. I mean, we need the grocery stores. You know, people want to be able to go to the mall to enjoy the patios, outdoor restaurants and spaces like that. And even as more indoor spaces begin to open up, like beauty parlors, tattoo parlors, salons, and all those things, staying safe, I mean, looking cute is important, but being healthy and staying safe is more important. So if you do need to go get your hair done, get your nails done, know that you will have to do that while wearing a mask as well. So Toronto's policy would effectively remain in place until the city council meeting scheduled for September 30th, where the order could be extended or it could be removed depending on the situation at hand. Mayor Tory said that we know we are at a critical time in the fight against COVID-19 and that we must do everything we can to avoid the flare-ups that we've seen in other places. Flare-ups, basically the fear of a second wave. And I feel like this was a little shade, if you will, thrown at our friends south of our border in the United States, as we're seeing their cases are beginning to skyrocket in places that reopened and did not require a mandatory mask wearing. We don't want that to happen. We don't want to have to deal with the fear of a second wave. So, as we've been saying on the Chat Up Show, ensuring that we do it well in the first wave means that we probably will not have to deal with the second wave later, as harsh of a second wave later. So taking these steps now to ensure that we are doing what we can to really help our communities and to avoid these flare-ups, as our mayor put it, that we've seen in these other places. Now, this news also comes one day after a call from mayors throughout the Greater Toronto and Hamilton area for this policy to be put in place across Ontario was rejected by Premier Doug Ford's government. Now, Ford had said that the reason behind this, and has repeatedly said that he believes such a policy would be impossible to enforce, and that his government trusts people to make responsible decisions when they leave their homes. Now, the province has also opted instead for a policy of strongly encouraging the public to wear non-medical masks and face coverings in busy indoor spaces. So all over Ontario, it is strongly encouraged, but in Toronto, this is a bylaw. So for those, with that being said, we're gonna take a quick commercial break where we're gonna enjoy a little ode to Canada from musician Tolazi and his daughter Rolaxi, which can also be found on Tolazi's YouTube channel. So stay tuned, and I hope you enjoy this little presentation.
Canada, Canada, we stand up, God, for you, our glorious land. Canada, Canada, the true north, the true north, the true north. Canada, Canada, we stand up, God, for you, our glorious land. Canada, Canada, the true north, the true north, the true north.
Oh, Canada, our native land, true patriot love in all of us command. With glory nights we see the rise, the true north, strong and free. From far away, oh Canada, we stand on God for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. Oh Canada, we stand on God for thee. Oh Canada, we stand on God for thee.
Canada, Canada, we stand up, God, for you, our glorious land. Canada, Canada, the true north, the true north, the true north. Canada, Canada, we stand up, God, for you, our glorious land. Canada, Canada, the true north, the true north, the true north.
Yes, that was so great. I love that. This was an ode to Canada, as it is Canada Day, celebrating the country that we are in right now. And also just a shout out to Tolazi for putting that together. Beautiful, beautiful song, beautiful, beautiful tribute to the country of Canada. Now, if you're just tuning in with us, this is the Chat Up Show, and I'm your host, Elizabeth Aloidi. And we've been talking about the recent temporary bylaw that was passed by the City of Toronto that is making masks mandatory in indoor public spaces. Now, this bylaw goes into effect July 7th, but for those who are wondering which specific places you will be needing to wear a mask in, just to give you an idea of the list of places, they include retail stores, convenience stores, malls, shopping plazas, grocery stores, farmers markets and enclosed areas, your restaurants, bars, patios, indoor recreational facilities, gyms, swimming pools when they are permitted to open up again, in your libraries, your community centers, churches, mosques, synagogues, temples, and faith settings, also art galleries, museums, aquariums, zoos. It's a long list. Basically, anywhere that is an enclosed space, you will need to wear a mask, of course, in the salons, in tattoo parlors, in business offices that are also open to the public. in common areas, in hotels, motels, and short-term rentals, in concert venues, theaters, cinemas, casinos when they start to reopen as well, in real estate facilities such as open houses and presentation centers. So those are just those are ideas of places that you will be required to wear a mask when you are in them. A more detailed list of this can also be found on the Toronto City website, so you can see the full list of these places. Now, Dr. Davila also said that this bylaw will not apply to workspaces that are not publicly accessible, nor would it apply to child care centers. Now, businesses under this bylaw are also not required to provide you with a mask, but there are some who are doing it anyway. But don't think that just because you're going to the business, they are required to give you a mask. You should come prepared with your own. Now, the bylaw will also permit the temporary removal of a mask or face covering when receiving services, having a meal, or engaging in an athletic or fitness activity. Now, the bylaw will not apply to apartment buildings and condominiums, childcare facilities, as I said before, schools, and areas that are not enclosed. For example, a restaurant patio. That's where the bylaws will not be applied. So these face coverings, as I said, does not replace the need to keep your distance of at least 2 meters or 6 feet from others, does not replace you needing to wash your hands, and does not replace you needing to stay home when you are sick or exhibiting these symptoms. Now, Dr. Davila also said that the action of wearing a mask may also act as a visual cue to remind everyone that we are still living through the COVID-19 pandemic and that there is still a risk of virus spread and that we need to be careful as we move forward living with COVID-19. So, words from Dr. Davila is that this might act as a reminder to all of us that we are still very much in the middle of a pandemic. Now, with that being said, it is Canada Day. It is a holiday. The sun is shining. Isn't it a great time to celebrate? Well, yes, it's important to celebrate this holiday and to celebrate the long weekend ahead. But it's important that remember we are still in the middle of a pandemic and we do need to stay safe. So if you are wondering what you can do to participate in the festivities of today, just to enjoy the day off from work, if you will, as well, here are a few lists of activities that you can do. For one, while wearing your mask, of course, you can take the ferries to Toronto Island, as those are now working and open. It is a lovely day, so maybe you want to spend the day on the island. Now, for obvious reasons, the Centreville Amusement Park is still closed, but you can hang out on the beaches, which are open. You can go stand-up paddle boarding, which is also an option. You can also stroll through the Franklin Gardens or get through the William Meany Maze. All of these things are open attractions on the island that you can enjoy, while also practicing safe physical distancing with the people in your 10-person social group. Remembering that as well. So those are some things that you can do in Toronto Island from the comfort of your own home. If you don't want to leave your house, you can also watch the virtual CN Tower light show at 9:30 for 15 minutes via the Toronto Arts and Culture YouTube live stream. Or you can see it in person. If you have a clear view of the CN Tower from your home, you can enjoy the beautiful 15-minute light show from the comfort of your own home, which I plan on doing from the comfort of my balcony. Okay, what you can also do is across the country, there will be a virtual fireworks show starting at 10 p.m. tonight, your local time in Canada. You will be able to watch the fireworks show via the canada.ca website. So there are various links on how you can enjoy the virtual fireworks show. So these are some virtual things that you can do while staying safe at home, but also participating in the festivities. You can start up a barbecue in your backyard, invite some of your 10 social circle friends over for a safe barbecue in your home if you feel comfortable doing that. Of course, the parks are open as well, so you can go have a nice, safe, socially distanced picnic in the park if you want to enjoy the beautiful day and the holiday as well. What else you can do? You could, of course, go to the patios, enjoy a nice cocktail in your favorite patio. Cabana patios are now open, the Cabana waterfront, so you can also book your own cabana by the pool, enjoy the Cabana pool bar. So that's something else you can do as well for the long weekend, because it is a long weekend too, you guys. Let's not forget that too. It doesn't only have to happen today. You got the whole weekend to enjoy these things, and you got the rest of the summer as well. Of course, while you are enjoying patio season, you should still adhere to physical distancing. And while you're waiting in line to get into the restaurants, get into the bars, be seated at your table, wearing your mask as much as possible. And a tip from experts, if you are going to be enjoying restaurants and bars and whatnot, you should maybe bring a plastic bag or something that can help keep your mask safe and clean and clear. And of course, your hand sanitizer and washing your hands and just practicing good hygiene while you're out in these places as well, because it's not just you that will be enjoying these places and spaces. So doing whatever you can to ensure that everyone is staying safe. Also, while you are enjoying these patios and restaurants, a tip from experts is to not spend too much time, just because the more time you spend outside, the more chance you have for cross transmission of COVID-19. And with that also in mind, don't do a bar crawl, don't hop from patio to patio just as well, because, cross transmission of COVID-19 as well is a potential when you're doing that. So try and limit it to like one bar, one patio, if you will, and then maybe just going home to be on the safe side. I mean, yes, enjoy the fact that we are in phase 2 and things are starting to open up, but also remember that we are still very much in the middle of a pandemic. So there you have it. Those are just some things. You can also head to the 6 beaches with active lifeguards on duty now. The beaches were never really closed, but there weren't active lifeguards on duty. But now there will be between 11:30 a.m. and 6:30 p.m. At Bluffers Park Beach, at Cherry and Clark Beach, at Cubami Beach, at Marie Curtis Park East Beach, Sunnyside Beach, and Woodbine Beach. So those are some beach options if you're really feeling for a day at the beach today. Those are the beaches that are open with lifeguards on duty. And of course, while on the beach, the same thing goes as anywhere else. Practice safe physical distancing. If you do need to wear your mask, of course, getting to and from your beach area, if you will, just taking those steps and ensuring to wash your hands, hand sanitizer, all of that stuff. Just, taking care of our hygiene while we're out here. The city might seem a little crowded as more people might fill into the streets over the next few days and for this long weekend holiday time. Try and stay away from as many crowded areas as possible. And if you can't stay away, wear your mask even if you're outdoors. I mean, while people were protesting, which protests are still going on in the United States, it's been over a month now, wearing a mask was so important because it was hard to ensure that everyone was gonna keep a safe 2-meter distance. So keep the same rule of thumb if you're gonna be out there enjoying these festivities out and about. If it's a crowded space, just know that wearing a mask is mandatory in these indoor spaces anyway, but outdoors, if it's a crowded area, that should be also another step to add, just to help protect yourself above anything else. Now, of course, as I said, you can go to parks, but also open our museums, and you can enjoy Ripley's Aquarium with the kids and the family. You can go to the Aga Khan Museum, or even enjoy the Museum of Illusions, which are all also open now and today for you to enjoy on Canada Day to celebrate the holidays. So you have some options, It's not that there's nothing to do. There are things to do in the city that you can enjoy this holiday and celebrate Toronto and celebrate Canada Day safely with your friends and family. Remember your close circle of 10, but also remembering that this bylaw is in effect, and it's probably going to be a better option to start enforcing it now for yourselves, implementing it now for yourselves. So wearing your masks and having it anytime you're going out in public is a great rule of thumb, and while you're enjoying these festivities as well. So there you have it. So many options for you to enjoy July 1st and the weekend to come. So with that, I will leave you with a great Happy Canada Day. I hope everyone stays safe and enjoys the holidays. Remember, as of July 7th in Toronto, masks will be mandatory in indoor spaces. More list of those spaces you can find on the Toronto City website. For today, to celebrate Canada Day, if you want to watch the virtual fireworks, again, you can watch those at the canada.ca website. With that, thank you so much for tuning in to the Chat Up Show today. today and chatting it up with me. As always, you can keep up with the GBKM network in various ways. You can watch live 24/7 at www.gbkm.fm. You can watch our shows on Facebook and YouTube live at GBKM TV. You can follow us on Instagram at GBKM FM and Twitter at GBKM_FM. And also you can keep up with me, your host, on Instagram and Twitter at TIS_Liz_O, just to find out how I'll be celebrating Canada Day today. And with that, stay safe and see you next week at the same time, same place. Take care.
As the world fights this coronavirus, we are standing together as a family.
My name is Kelly. I'm a fan of GBKM.
My name is Pastor Clement Omozane.
I'm Medea, your red carpet host.
I am your host, Ellen